I don't know. I don't know, but I feel like the whole gun thing is like a distraction too, don't you?
I don't know. Why would they say they're
Something that
sending it to, I
you're
mean, why? Oh, it's a distraction
yeah.
from.
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is like when they're distracting you from it, I feel like it's a lot of times it's hard to break through what it is because especially like
Because this is such a good
dude,
distraction.
I
I
was
mean,
trying to find
how else are you going to get everybody riled up, right?
that doesn't even matter.
Tell them you're
Like,
taking their guns and sending them to Ukraine.
just the perfect example was me trying to find the video from the fucking announcement and from the 2020 gun ban announcement. You can go onto YouTube and search those terms directly, and it's almost impossible to find because it's all just flooded by yesterday and this week, and content's being created. It's the dead internet shit. I mean, honestly, this is gonna be the problem with AI in the end. Is it's gonna run into itself and then start cannibalizing itself and then just start producing goop. Speaking of which, Chat GPT went down today, and it's been down.
Really? Well, it was caught. One of them was caught lying to themselves so they wouldn't get disconnected, apparently.
I've heard they're all being sued for copyright infringement right now for like their whatever they're grabbing their sources from. They're grabbing their sources from copyrighted material without permission.
That might be the way to shut them all down now and take them out of the public hands.
It's gonna come crashing down to an end. It's gonna remember it. I'm getting it eerily reminiscent of the .com crash. Since it's gonna be the AI crash. It's cool again because it's just 2 syllables. .com, AI.com. All right. The gun grab. Let's get to it. Here's a little clip that we could play. So because we might as well just get this ridiculousness right out of the way right away. So we can hear it out of the horse's mouth or the ass's mouth.
In this country.
Our goal is to ensure that no community, no family is devastated by mass shootings in Canada again.
These firearms join the list of more than 1,500 types of firearms Prime Minister Justin Trudeau banned the sale and use of in 2020. As was the case 4 years ago, the government is offering owners and retailers of these newly outlawed guns amnesty until October 2025, while officials finalize a national buy.
Even that is kind of weird, right? We're offering you amnesty until right after the next election.
Oh, that's interesting.
Definitely program.
Definitely after, right? This is not the 2020 one. This is the new one, right?
Yeah, well, the original 2021 still had amnesty until October 25th, 2025.
So they both. What does that mean, amnesty? The gun.
That means I don't have to give them my fucking guns if I had any, which I don't. But if I did have some of these guns that they've now banned, and I didn't want to sell them back to them, I can kind of contemplate it from now until the 25th. I have amnesty, so it just.
And then what if you want to keep them?
That is not an option according to them.
What do you mean? How are they gonna? They're not gonna actually like go around and search and stuff, are they? How are they gonna figure this out?
Well, I don't know how they're gonna figure it out.
Because of the registry, is that why? Because people are registered, so they will know.
There is no registry. There's no registry. They did start since 2020. They changed the law so that even on a secondhand purchase, you're still supposed to call the RCMP or go online to the RCMP firearms website and put in my PAL number and I think the kind of gun you're selling too. So it was like they weren't calling it a registry, but it was like a point of sale registry. So they were registering the sale, which like places like Canadian Tire and Cabela's have been doing for quite some time. But so they just in 2020 it started where like some guys want to see your PAL when you buy a gun from them. Some guys don't care.
But so they put that information somewhere? They put your PAL number somewhere on the transaction?
Yeah, well, basically what would happen is I would give them my email address and my firearms license, and they would get a transfer thing from the RCMP website, and then I would get an email saying that I was good to go pick up this gun, which is kind of how handguns work. So you could see it sort of sneaking in.
Wow, so they do have records of like,
which is what I think Pierre's. I think that there's a chance Here's what I would do.
What do you mean,
If I was
Pierre?
if I was not if I was Pierre, I don't want to be Pierre. If I was, because I don't trust Pierre, but if my long-term plan was to get the guns slowly without, because right now you don't know who's got the guns.
Well,
So-
yeah, they do though. You just said that. I mean, for the most part, they're going to
Yeah,
have
it's for 4 years.
50% or
That's
80.
for
What?
4 years. That's for 4 years. That's not
Yeah,
50 or
but-
80%.
Yeah, but wasn't there
So
a long
any gun purchased before, like, I would say, because the stores probably implemented it in like 2015 or 2016. So we're talking about the last like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah,
That
but
there's
what about
any record of anything.
What about the long gun registry from before that?
There's never been a successful long gun registry.
What do you mean successful? They grabbed millions of names, didn't they? At the time.
No, it's voluntary. There's a voluntary gun registry in Canada.
Okay, so they have that.
Whatever that is. I mean, I don't know anyone who's voluntarily registered their gun. But so they don't know who's got the guns for the most part. They might know people in the last 4 years. They might have an idea of those ones that have moved around in the last 8 years, those ones that have bought around. But anything before 2017, 2016 is just, it's a fucking, they don't know. There's a million or two guns kicking around, and they don't know there could still be a bunch of the guns that they banned back in 1993 that are still around, because before that, like Firearms Act, there's really nothing. So I think that Pierre's going to rescind it, and he's going to do it via I think that the Conservatives are going to sneak in a gun registry. I think that's because you could sort of appease both sides by saying, all right, you can keep them, but we got to know who's got them, and you shouldn't care anyway, because the big argument right now is that you guys are the law-abiding gun owners. So send us your serial number.
So this could be a setup to let that happen as a reaction to this.
That's assuming there's any chance that the Conservatives are planning to rescind this, which I'm not convinced of.
Well, that's a good plan. I mean, that's a long plan. I like it.
That'd be a slow way to get everyone down on paper. So, because when you do take right now, if they're mobilized to go get these guns, they don't really have a good way to do it. You know, they don't really know who's got them. Right now, they've got a plan of just buying all the ones that are in the stores. So any of the ones Cabela's or Canadian Tire or any of these places have on their shelves, they're just going to buy them. We'll buy them so that. But as far as everyone else, they don't know.
Taxpayers are going to buy those guns
at a cost of possibly up to $2 billion. But, you know, there is no gun registry in Canada. So other than handguns and restricted guns, I would say it's like maybe 2% of guns are registered.
Wow, that's it, eh? Okay. Now, what percentage of guns are on this list? But all lists that say these guns are banned, like what percentage would that be?
30, oh, 40? I don't know. There's an awful lot of guns out there. I mean,
30-40% maybe. Like
I would say more like. I can begin to guess. And the other thing is, there's probably all sorts of weird platforms you could still get that they haven't caught on yet, or someone will make a way around it. The interesting thing with this time is they did catch like Canadian companies, like Kodiak is a Canadian company. They're basically telling you can't make those anymore.
Right. Facing pressure to ban additional firearms that came on the market after 2020 and that weren't covered in the Liberals' major gun control bill passed a year ago. It remains to be seen exactly how many firearms will be turned over in time. But once they are, the government says they have a plan to get them out of the country and potentially onto the front lines of the Russia-Ukraine war.
We've been working very closely with our friends in Ukraine to ensure that weapons that were intended to be used in combat could be made available to them.
Do you know how?
So there it is. There's our boy. Is it Bill Blair? Is that his name? Talking about how he's going to send, well, not my guns because I don't have any that are on the list. But if I did, he would take them and send them to Ukraine. So let's, I don't think there's any point in taking a look at that. There's the honesty thing. We don't need to look at that. We might as well take a look at this. Though, while we're talking about it, because this is the thing that talks about this is from last year. But this is where the government documents project the gun buyback cost nearly $2 billion, double minister's estimates. So there's a nice, that's a Sterling Arms, I think. 223 or 556. It might be an AR-15, actually. Anyway, internal government documents from 2019 put the cost of a government mandatory gun buyback at nearly $2 billion, despite assurances during the last federal election that expropriating so-called assault rifles from licensed Canadian firearms owners would only cost between 400 and 600 million. That was for 1,500, so you could probably add another 20% to that or 25% to that because they just added another 380 to the list. So that's probably up to like what 2.7 billion or something like that, 2.5 billion. Amendments to the classification regulations and new amnesty order could be brought into force in the short term as they do not require legislation, which basically means that this amnesty period, they could just sort of end at any time. With the, I would say the one saving grace we have is that most of the provinces, because all the police forces are provincially mandated. And I believe that the Alberta RCMP has already taken a stance that the provincial government has told the RCMP that they can't, they're not to take part in it. I think Saskatchewan sort of said the same thing. But I mean, technically, if you had this gun, it's just, it was instantly prohibited. You just instantly had a prohibited firearm. So that if you got caught with one of those after this grace period is over, if the end of the period, say you had one, you didn't bring it back, minimum sentence is probably, I would say, a year or two. Minimum.
Almost as bad as hate speech.
Well, hate speech, I thought they could just lock you up indefinitely.
So, of course, who wrote this article?
This is from the National Post last year.
So the National Post wouldn't have said anything about the $9 million that was spent on the consultants from that office space that had nobody working in it, and couldn't figure that out. That was
the National Post is
the buyback, right?
Critical of the government. This was probably before then, I would say. So here's the next steps. Amendments to the classification regulations and new amnesty order could be brought into force in the short term as they do not require legislation. The buyback program could be implemented in the medium term, 1 to 2 years. Requires program design and implementation beyond any precedent, is outside the existing authorities of departments and agencies, and would be costly. Administration such as notification, collection, storage, destruction, and payment and compensation to individual owners is estimated at 1.8 billion. So there you have it. They're going to spend another $2 billion of your tax money.
And the reasoning is all because to keep the streets safer, basically, like just to protect the public. Is there any other reasoning for them besides giving them to the front lines in Ukraine?
Just clean up the streets.
Like, what else can they say, right?
Like,
so you wonder if legal guns are really responsible for street violence.
Here's a Ruger Mini.
Out of all the gun deaths in Canada, how many are from legal guns? I mean, this
Ruger 14's been banned for a long time. So, I mean, if you showed up with that Ruger 14, I'd have to say you'd be in trouble because you're supposed to get rid of it like 30 years ago. Well, I do have this one too. This might be a better one to share then. Legally registered guns rarely used to commit criminal acts. That one looks like mine. By Greg Dunn, a recent Statistics Canada report confirms that people with unregistered firearms are responsible for the majority of gun-related crime in Canada. This should be a wake-up call for the federal government, which has been unfairly targeting legitimate firearm owners through gun control legislation. It notes that the rate of firearm-related violent crime in Canada reached a 14-year high in 2022, with police services reporting nearly 14,000 firearm-related violent crimes. That number may sound significant, but it only represents 2.8% of all violent crimes reported by the police that year, states the report. The rate of firearm-related violent crime was 36.7 incidents per 100,000 population in 2022, an 8.9% increase from the previous year. So here's where we get to the guns used in crimes are not traced. No province requires investigators to send guns used in crimes for tracing, the agency found. There are a number of additional gaps in our knowledge of the nature of firearm-related violence in Canada. The extent to which organized crime is involved in firearm-related violence is currently unclear. Patterns in the ethnicity, indigenous identity, and socioeconomic characteristics of both victims and persons accused of firearm-related violence are also unknown. According to a federal report, approximately 26% of Canadian households own some sort of firearm in total. It is estimated that about 3 million civilians in Canada own firearms. It also states that 95% of firearm-owning households in Canada possess long guns and less than 12% own handguns. Canadian firearm owners tend to be male and are more likely to reside in smaller communities. Approximately 7 million firearms are estimated to be owned by private individuals. This number includes as many as 1.2 million restricted firearms. The overall rate of firearm ownership is at least 241 per thousand population and is comparable to ownership rates in other countries where hunting is a significant activity. Little is known about the sources of legal firearms in Canada. During the past 10 years, the number of firearms imported into Canada for use by private individuals has declined considerably. So now what I'd expected to find in there, and I didn't.
And the last one was hunting. Hunting continues to be the main reason why, or?
Yeah, self-protection is rarely cited as a primary concern, but that's because it's you're not legally allowed to defend your.
I mean, yeah, yourself and your property. I mean, I wonder if they could think about maybe just stopping criminals from getting out of jail so quick, and like violent criminals could just actually get the law thrown at them like they should.
I swore it said in here somewhere how many were committed with that, and I thought it was quite low. Like, oh, here we go. We can all agree that Canada has a gun crime problem, but who's to blame for that? The firearms used in homicides were rarely legal firearms used by their legal owners who were in good standing. It adds that in most cases, 36 homicides, the firearm was illegal. That is, it has never been legally owned in Canada. Of these 36 illegal firearms, 20 were sent for tracing. Stats found that 6 of these were American in origin. The origin of the other 14 were unknown. They were from America, I could tell you that. Among homicides where information was available, the accused had a license in only 13%, 16 out of 119 homicides involving handguns, and 7 out of 15 involving rifles or shotguns.
Huh.
So around 1 in 8 is committed with a legal firearm. There you have it. I think that could probably sort of wrap up the little gun grab segment. I don't know if we need to. I mean, I do have a couple other little things here, but I don't know if we really need to. Actually, we could look at this one quick.
Well, I have some questions though, if you want.
Here I have this little infographic.
Okay.
Where they just has some weird stats. National 874 homicides were reported by police in 2022. Compared with 2021, the homicide rate increased by 8%. According to police, 90 youths were accused of homicide in 2022. And gang 23%, a quarter of all homicides are from gang-related activities. 41%, firearms are used in 41%. Firearms were seized in 1 in 5 homicide incidents with an average of 2 firearms seized per incident. You know what stat they don't have on their little infographic is how many of the guns were legal and how many were illegal.
They have 27%. About a quarter of the victims were identified as indigenous, and
how
31%.
many of the perpetrators were Indians? We don't have that.
Victims identified as racialized persons continue to account for approximately 1/3.
So is that blacks?
Do you identify yourself as racialized, or do you got identified?
I think I'm an indigenous in the there. So it's
no, I mean like in general, like
Am I racialized? What does racialized mean?
Yeah, that's I don't know. It means that you're just what? Not white? BIPOC?
I am a BIPOC.
I heard the Chinese are not really sure if they should include them in all these things. Like that BIPOC lounge in the university, there's a comment that says we're not sure whether the Chinese are allowed in or not.
They're not.
They're not?
I don't think so. It's black and indigenous, not yellow. They'd have to add a Y in there. Here it is. Sending firearms to Ukraine. The government of Canada has committed to the Ukrainian government to work with businesses with a view to identifying how these previously prohibited guns. I mean, they were prohibited yesterday, motherfucker.
Change your screen share.
Could be donated to support the fight for democracy in Ukraine. I mean, Buddy is still holding power without elections. He's canceled elections. Are we still supporting democracy in Ukraine? These guns are military style guns, and Ukraine has indicated an interest in those with NATO caliber 5.56. Well, I don't have any of those. I actually used to have a couple, but I lost them in the river with a little boat accident. So it's a real shame.
So what's the? That's what I wanted to ask you is what is it about this list about these guns? Why are they on the list? Like, couldn't it be unfair to some suppliers if isn't there some subjectivity in which guns are chosen and what suppliers are chosen? Like, was there any controversy over what makes and brands weren't chosen versus were chosen? Like if I was making a gun,
some people were complaining, because some people were surprised the SKS wasn't on there, but the SKS is they're gonna have trouble getting rid of the SKS because it's the #1 Indian hunting gun in the country. So,
so what are some reasons why they put certain guns on this list then?
Well, the GSG 16 that they put on the list is a 22. I mean, it's for shooting rabbits.
Okay,
it's a kid's gun. My kids have a 22.
Okay, so that shouldn't be on the list. Like, well, I mean, you don't think there should be a list at all, but I mean, what are some of the other reasons then?
Because they look scary.
How can you be could it be unfair? I mean, is it a visual thing? Is it really like a scary looking thing?
Well, I'm here on the BC Firearms Academy website where it says the primary reason these firearms have been added to the ban list is their aesthetic design. These rifles are often classified alongside military firearms due to their look, rather than their actual performance or risk.
Oh my
It's
God!
important to recognize that the GSG 15 and the GSG 16 have been used safely by many responsible gun owners for years. So it's a 22.
I was just joking.
It's a 22.
I was joking. Oh my God. That gun looks scary. So how about BB guns and stuff then? How about the scary looking BB guns?
Well, they already banned the scary looking airsoft guns. So you can't get like an replica airsoft gun in Canada that looks like an AR-15.
Right.
Dude, I tried to buy, because remember we were down in Texas hanging out with Dave there at his place, and I was playing with his blow gun. He had a cool blow gun. So I was like, when I get home, I'm going to order one. Prohibited in Canada. I can't get a fucking blow dart gun. Can't make this stuff up.
You probably can't even have bear mace with you.
You're allowed to have it right now, but that's only because
of the bear situation.
We have bears. Like, can you have? You're not allowed bear spray in California.
Wow.